I have something I want to share with you today. I've often heard, I grew up Baptist, and I often heard, confession is good for the soul. You ever heard that? Confession is good for the soul? And I know in some ways in the Baptist church, they invited people to get up and share their confession in front of the whole congregation. Right? So I have a confession this morning. I know I haven't been here very long, but I do trust that you're my friends. I trust that you already love and accept me just the way I am, so I know you're not going to judge me too harshly. And I have already shared this with Jay, but take a breath. I'm having a love affair. It's true. I'm having a love affair with the trees on this property.
Me too.
I know many of you can understand that. Being here on the campus during the week, I take every opportunity I can to walk around and commune with the trees. And it's just been an amazing experience to feel that energy. If you really take the time to be with the trees, you can feel them breathing with you. You can feel the life in the trees. And so if you haven't done that recently, or if you haven't ever done it, I encourage you to do it. Today's a beautiful day for it. But one day I was walking around, I had walked around in the morning before our staff meeting on Tuesday. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. Or maybe it was before lunch one day, I don't remember. But we sit around the table and eat lunch together very often as a staff. And I'd walked around and I recognized it was so dry. Before we had these beautiful rains most recently, it was so dry. Everything was brown, the grasses were brown, and the trees were, I could just tell the trees were telling me, I'm thirsty. Yeah. And so I felt the energy of the trees. And so I came back in and I was just wondering how in this kind of weather, in this drought, how do they survive? How do they continue to survive? And I made some comment about that, and Des knows everything. And so Des reminded me of the taproot. And so I thought, yeah, the taproot. And so I did my homework and I started learning more about the taproot of these beautiful trees. And how the taproot, I'm not trying to insult anyone's knowledge base, but just to remind us that the taproot is that first formation of the root when the acorn begins to germinate, and it sends out this taproot that goes deep into the earth to ground it, to provide the stability for that germination to take place, that transformation that we talked about last week, so that tree, that sapling, can have this grounding and the firm foundation to then grow as a sapling and sprout and can become these amazing living beings. And then I learned about how the taproot, and then other roots go out from there to absorb the nutrients and the water, and the taproot can store that, and the taproot can store the water and the nutrients. So when we have these kinds of experiences, this drought and this hot weather, and even the storms sometimes that blow through, the trees can then draw from that and continue to live and continue to sprout out. Have you really noticed the beauty of how these trees grow? Yeah. The the limbs just begin to wind around. And having a love affair with trees is not a new thing, I have to admit. I've had love affairs with other trees in the past. In fact, when I was living in Dallas and I was looking for houses, they had to have trees. And I bought this house once for the tree because it had this beautiful live oak tree right in the front yard, and its branches just spread out over the whole yard and over the house. And the branches had spread out and were spreading out so long that they had to be cabled up, and I was like, I just worshiped that tree. But how they grow, and so they then take in, the light, so they can do that photosynthesis thing that then they create their own food, and then they breathe. And they breathe out, right? The oxygen that we breathe. They breathe with us. Isn't that miraculous? Isn't that amazing? And the tree itself is just what we see. What about the root system down beneath the surface that continues then to communicate with the other living things, the organisms, and they have these partnerships with the trees that they feed each other? Isn't that amazing? Now you're probably wondering, what the heck is he talking about trees for? But when I thought about that, I thought, what a beautiful metaphor for being spirit-centered. To being like those trees are, tapped into source, the source of their food, the source of their nourishment, the source of their strength and their stability and their resilience. Tapped in. And I love this idea of being tapped in and tuned in and turned on. I'm tapped in, tuned in, and turned on. So I thought about that, and I thought, they're tapped in, but they're also tuned in. They're tuned into all of that life that goes on beneath the surface. And they are able to connect with that and absorb that and use that and grow from that and thrive from that. But they're also turned on, right? They breathe with us. They grow and they provide homes for birds and other animals. And if you looked at the patio recently, you see all these acorns on the patio, so they provide food for the squirrels and other animals who eat those. So what a beautiful metaphor for us to be spirit-centered. So I'm going to invite us to say that together. I am spirit-centered. Together. I am spirit-centered. Together, once again. I am spirit-centered. Grounded, centered in source, as we talk about, from which all arises and all returns. All is born and all returns. The process of birth and death and resurrection. We talked about some of that last week. So my idea for us to consider today is affirming, I'm using this idea of TAP as an acronym. And so I want us to consider these concepts using that acronym. Tapped in. Tapped into absolute principle. I am tapped in to absolute principle. What is the absolute principle? As we understand it, it's unity. The absolute principle of unity, of oneness. That God is, I am. God is the life in me and in you. God is the life in the tree. God is the life. God is the life force energy in and through and as all creation. God is, I am. And I want to remind you that Well, I found this quote by Emerson from the Oversoul. And he says, there is no bar or wall in the soul where man, the effect, ceases and God, the cause, begins. There is no wall. There is no bar. Can we tap in to that absolute truth? And I think we tap into that through our understanding, through our willingness. There is no bar or wall where man or humankind, the effect, and God, the source, ceases. And Jesus, our teacher, in John, he says, I am in the Father, and you in me, and I in you. Isn't he saying the very same thing, really? I am in the Father. The Father is in me, and I am in the Father, and I am you, and we are all one. And that's what he called this life energy. God, he called it the Father very often. Abba. Father. Source. And so our opportunity is to really tap into that. And know that it is in that. That is where our stability comes from. When the winds of change are blowing, when there is a drought of whatever might be happening in our lives, can appear as a drought of love or prosperity or creativity or whatever it is that we might be seeking, we can know and we can trust. And we can ground ourselves in that knowing of source. Yes, I'm experiencing this which the trees experience in the sun and the wind and the drought. I can experience that in my human existence, and I can know. I can hold both. I can know that I'm experiencing this, and I can know that I'm grounded, I'm centered, I'm tapped in to Spirit, to the source. And I'm not just talking about the source out there, but the Spirit that is you. Your own spirit. Your God self. Goddess self, if you prefer. Yourself. That which God is as you. So our opportunity is to be tapped in. Tapped in to absolute principle. Say that with me. I am tapped into absolute principle. I am tapped in to absolute principle. And then we have the opportunity to be tuned in. Tuned in to the abiding presence. Tune in to the abiding presence. And what do I mean by that? As I talked about with the tree is tuned in to that energy beneath the surface, beneath the appearance. And our opportunity is to tune into that. Tune into the unmanifested. I love this imagery. You know, Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, was talked about as spending hours sometimes in what he called the silence. It goes beyond meditation. It goes beyond prayer. It goes into this place of conscious union with Source. Tuned in to the frequencies, the vibrations that are beyond what we normally would hear or see or smell or taste with our physical senses. You know what I'm talking about. That we all have deeper senses. We may call them our spiritual senses. Clairvoyance and clairaudience and clairsentience, clear sensing, clear seeing, clear hearing. That really tunes into this vibration. And like that trees who are in harmony and resonance and working together with those life forms beneath the surface, we are all can connect with that. Do you believe me? Are you with me? Have you experienced it? Absolutely. Experience that deeper connection. And when we can do that and be tapped in, when we have those things going on in our lives, I love this idea that we talk about in unity, stay prayed up. Have you heard that? Just stay prayed up. The more we pray, the more we meditate, the more we go into the silence, think of it as sending out those root systems out from the tap and taking into your tap root that wisdom and that guidance and that sustenance, the stability, and storing that. Storing it so that when you are faced with something that is challenging in your life, you can draw upon it. Stay prayed up. That means having a practice. It can be prayer, it can be meditation, it can be mind treatment that we talk about in Science of Mind, it can be communing with these beautiful life forms that we call trees. Walking in nature. I know we have a plant sale today. Plants are beautiful expressions of life. Do you talk to your plants? Do you share that energy? So connecting with that, and I know other people have, we talk about all sorts of things in unity, angels and guides and teachers and vibrations that are beyond what we normally see or sense or feel. And it's all what we call God. It's all representations. And we have the opportunity to tune in. And I did have a couple more quotes. Tune into the abiding presence. In Psalm 46:10, it says, "Be still and know that I am God." How often are we really willing to just be still? I mean, just be still. I invite you to check in with yourself this week. Are you willing? I've tried it, and it ain't easy. At least I haven't found it to be easy. To just be still. Because my mind wants to go in all sorts of directions. My mind will say, "What the heck are you doing? You've got so much else to do. You can't afford to spend time just being still." That's the old ego, right? Trying to keep us from experiencing that. So practice that this week. Maybe go out when you leave here today. I want to see everybody hugging trees. Maybe when you leave today, just take a few, maybe it doesn't have to be minutes. It could be a minute. A minute can seem like a long time. Just stay there and just experience the stillness. The stillness of the tree. And the stability and the energy of the tree. Or the rocks. Ooh, rocks are great too. And so there's another Emerson quote that says, "There's guidance for each of us, and by lowly listening we shall hear the right words." Lowly listening, being still, going in, and connecting, tuning in to that abiding presence. It's all around us. It's in us, through us, as us. And then the last part of that would be to turn on. Turn on to abundant power. So let's say that together. I am turned on to abundant power. One more time. I am turned on to abundant power. I know Linda Martella-Whitsitt was here a few months ago, and she wrote a couple of books, Divine Audacity, and I can't remember the last one, but in Divine Audacity, she says this about the 12 powers, which Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, discerned these 12 powers of humankind that are really aspects or tools of our Christ nature, our divinity, our spirit, your spirit, and my spirit, that we all have inherently, but that we have the opportunity to develop and to use and to strengthen. So Linda says all our spiritual powers or abilities are inherent, arising from the source. We come fully loaded with every ability. Every ability. And so we have that opportunity to strengthen those powers, to use those powers. Those powers that we call life and release and love and order and strength and wisdom and love and dominion and zeal and imagination and faith and understanding, and I may be forgetting one or two, I don't know. But all of those powers are within us. And our opportunity, just like those trees who are experiencing whatever they may be experiencing in the outer, difficult challenges. There's a tree, oh my gosh. You have to go see this tree if you haven't seen this tree. It's in the northeast corner. It has blown over. I was walking around it. I thought it was just a bunch of shrubs until I walked around and saw the trunk of the tree, and the tree is blown over. I don't know if it blew over, if it was the ice storm, whatever it was. Most of it is on the ground, but it is still growing out. It is still seeking the light. It is still growing toward the light and seeking the sun. And so our opportunity is to be turned on in the outer. I mean, this tree obviously experienced something dramatic and drastic in its life so that it has fallen over. How many of us have experienced things like that in our lives? You may be experiencing something like that in your life right now, where you feel like you've just been toppled over, that you've been uprooted, like that tree. Probably one of the oldest trees on the property, if I could guess. But even in the midst of that, that tree is tapped in to source. Tapped in to the source of all life. And it continues to grow. Continues to seek the light. It's tuned in to something that's supporting it, something beneath the surface that continues to support its life. And it continues to spread out, to share itself, to seek the light. And what I want to encourage us to know is that when we get turned on to spirit, when we get tapped in and turned on, that our opportunity is like those trees to reach out, to share that light, to share the beauty, to provide shade, to provide a safe place for other people, to provide houses for those who need housing, those who are seeking, those who are without, like the squirrels that the trees provide the food for. To me, that is how we can express and truly be turned on to Source. Can we use those beautiful beings of life as an example to tap in to Source? Use that to strengthen us, to sustain us, to continue to store up resources for when we experience those challenges of life. Can we tune in to our own spirit and to other spirits, if you will, other life energies that are always here, always supporting? And can we then be turned on and support each other? You know, I love how when we can't see what's going on beneath, that the trees are communicating. The trees are sharing information. They're supporting each other in their growth. They're sending information to each other. And so I think our opportunity is to also be reminded of that we're all connected. We may look different. We may show up in the physical life differently. We may have different shapes. I mean, our limbs may grow different ways. But underneath it all, we're connected by a life force that sustains us, supports us, strengthens us, provides all that we could possibly need. Because beneath the appearance, there is only that life. Beneath whatever appears in our lives, there is always that life. And no matter what appears on the outer, you are always that life. You are that life. Where I am, God is. And so I want you to say with me this last affirmation. I am tapped in, tuned in, and turned on to Spirit. One more time. Let's stand. I want you to stand up and say it. I want you to feel it. So let's take a moment, first of all. Take a moment, take a breath. Feel that breath going all the way down through the bottom of your feet, grounding yourself in this unseen, the Spirit, the Source, tapping in and then tuning on to that life. Tuning in, and then turning on. So let's say it together. I am tapped in, tuned in, and turned on to Spirit. And so it is. Thank you.